I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our Insider Insight Show. I am honored to have back with me one of the true good guys in politics. As many of you know, I do not have folks that hold political office on my platform on a regular basis, let alone a rare basis, with the exception of one. That would be Senator Eric Lucero from Minnesota.
It
Why?
is a true honor to be
Well,
back.
well, Eric, I wish, I just wish there were 51% of folks in political office that were you. The good news is we have Eric Lucero. The bad news is we don't have 51%. We don't even have 1% as far as I'm concerned, let alone 0.1% in the political world. And for those of you not familiar with Eric's background, let me give you his background and why he is so unique. Should not be, but is. He was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives in 2014, re-elected in 2016, 18, and 20. He then was elected to the Minnesota Senate in 2022. Eric's professional background, as opposed to being a poli-sci major and never holding a job and just holding staff positions and all of a sudden becoming elected, no, that's not Eric's background. His background includes over 20 years in the information technology and cybersecurity fields. Eric's academic background includes an MBA from the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota, a Bachelor of Applied Science in Computer Forensics, and Bachelor of Science in Law Enforcement, with minors in mathematics and psychology, all from Metropolitan State University, and a Computer Networking Design and Development degree from NEI College of Technology. Eric is one in a million in the world of politics. He is very down to earth, but most importantly, he is very honest and he cares more about people than he does himself. And he is willing to put himself on the firing line in trying to make people's lives better. It's my privilege, pleasure, and honor to welcome back Senator Eric Lucero. Eric.
Well, thank you. Again, it's always an honor to join you and your great audience.
So, Eric, we recently had an election in the beginning of November here in 2025. In New Jersey, governor's race, and several other offices, obviously in New Jersey. The race in Virginia, not just governor, but obviously lieutenant governor, attorney general, which we'll get into, and a number of other the House of Delegates and the like, and the New York City mayor's race, and a race in your backyard in Minneapolis that nobody seems to be talking about, and then we had the Proposition 50 in California. So, Eric, take us around the country. Give us your take, because the morning after Dogma was huge win for the Dems, the globalists, the syndicate, and it was a repudiation of President Trump and of the MAGA movement. That's what's being pushed into the public sphere on through all these tentacles. Give us your take.
Well, we look at the election results, and while certainly disappointing, they are not surprising. Look at the list you have there: California, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, all very much long time Democrat states. Now, Virginia, granted, it's Republican. This last, the last governorship, obviously, and lieutenant governor, but it has been a Democrat state. So the list there, it's quite the stretch for any analysis or political pundit to say this is a repudiation of MAGA, America First, and prioritizing American citizens above foreigners. Rather, it was those blue states solidifying that they are more interested, unfortunately, for themselves, for their own amount of cost of government, growth in government, and the decrease in quality of life, them solidifying that they want these Democrats who are promoting things that are the absolute antithesis
Mhm.
of the founding of this country, the antithesis of achieving the highest quality of life, the antithesis of opening up the doors of opportunity for the next generation. All of those things were voted against with the outcome. So when we look at this again, the summary is disappointing, but not surprising.
And
And
if we
so when there's going to, and also it was an off-year election
right.
in many of the jurisdictions. So
Well, and you look at some of the candidates. The candidate for governor, Winston Sears, she was very much anti-Trump. But
hmm.
Trump not to show up, wouldn't support him, actually was pushing in 2024 that he not run, right? If we,
Wow. Okay. No, I didn't know that.
oh yeah, well,
I
no.
haven't followed her that close. I've seen her speak. She's an amazing
She's
speaker.
an amazing speaker, but she beyond stiff-armed
Hmm.
Donald Trump for years. Okay, many people believe that was Youngkin trying to get the Republican nomination, the governor, and he put her as the enforcer to try to, as a black woman conservative, saying this guy can't be the nominee in 2024. Cicerelli, the New Jersey candidate, Republican side, again, stiff-armed Donald Trump, right? What was not a supporter of Donald Trump in 2024, let alone now told Trump, I don't need you coming, I don't want you coming here. If we look, Curtis Sliwa, who I believe loves the city of New York, he has a long track record of that. Yet he publicly stated, I don't want Trump's endorsement. Well, if I, okay. And of course, Gavin Newsom pulling his mojo in 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 California. Mandami, he is an unapologetic. He calls himself a democratic socialist. Eric, I'm an old guy, and when I was back in college at Bucknell University, I majored in two things: chemistry and economics. Right, and in the economics department, there was one free market professor, and all the other professors called themselves democratic market socialists.
Hmm.
So I'm so old that you could actually disagree with your professor and actually get a good grade. Right? So I would ask them, tell me the difference between being a democratic market socialist, which is what Mandami calls himself. Here we are in 2025, 40 years later. I go, tell me the difference between that and being a Marxist. And here's what they would say to me: Dave, there is no difference. It's marketing.
Exactly. It's branding.
Right? They go, people will accept more readily if you say, I'm a democratic market socialist than if you say, I'm a Marxist.
So the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
So whatever label, despite the label, the window dressing that they put on it, unfortunately, it's deceptive advertising. That's what it is. It's bait and switch.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not being honest. If we could put disclaimers, like you'd hold companies accountable for lack of proper disclosure, that's exactly what this is. Here's the reality: not just in the last 25 years, not just in the last 100 years, for human history, it is demonstrated that individuals are able to achieve their potential with the recognition of private property rights, individual liberty, and free market competition. So free market competition encourages those to work hard, to sacrifice, to go out and bring their idea to market. And then when they're able to achieve that in a free market, free trade system, they're able to reap the rewards and then claim those as private property ownership. That is how societies advance. That is how you foster new inventions to come about.
Well, so if you look,
Well, hold on. And then contrary to that, the
yeah,
other side of that would be the belief system that private property rights can be infringed, that those with force can forcefully confiscate under the threat of imprisonment or worse the private property rights, the human labor that is translated into dollars, and then redistributed to others. Those two worldviews are opposing, and one leads to prosperity, and the other eventually leads to self-strangulation. And so, with those that are misbranding themselves as a democratic socialist or however they're framing it, and that's what's happening in New York, it is a tightening of that ability, the lack of ability to produce and succeed.
So when we look at Mamdani during the campaign, and actually in his pretty blusterous campaign victory speech, right? He spoke about a number of his agenda items. Okay, state-run businesses, the grocery store deal, right? Huge free, quote, free giveaways.
$30 minimum wage, I think, buses.
Yeah, free
Yeah, the grocery
transportation,
stores. Yep.
subsidized tuition, right? Subsidized childcare, subsidized health care, subsidized rent control. He addressed essentially avoidance of any type of implementation of immigration law, right? And the way this is all going to be paid for is through excessive taxation.
That's what they say. And that's always their claim, is that they believe that they can tinker with the market and that those with means are not going to respond. In a free market system, businesses that are owned by individuals that make rational decisions, or individuals themselves that are wealthy, they will respond to the market pressures and the regulation and the increase in taxes. They will respond by relocating themselves, both the business and individuals. And so those socialists that are claiming that they can offer all these free things are acting on the assumption that they're operating in a vacuum and that they can just increase spending, increase the confiscation of private property without a response from those who they're taking from. And that's where their system breaks down. They never account for that. And those that were, I just read a headline this morning, the suburbs that are surrounding New York are seeing an incredible increase of those that are leaving. Those with means are already purchasing property outside of New York, so they're outside the taxing jurisdiction.
So play this out. Where is New York City going to be in, let's give them a couple years. What
Well,
do we,
that's the silver lining to this, is that, I'm not the one that's made it up, but we've heard it many times, the analogy of the train headed towards the cliff. It's going to go off the cliff. And we can either do it slower and make it a longer time before it goes off the cliff, or we can expedite this. Either once we go over the cliff, that's what's going to be the rude awakening and the catalyst for people to change. But the longer it takes us to get that train to the cliff to go over, the longer we're going to have to live like this. So that the silver lining is this is going to expedite that. We're going to see in very short order here how this system is going to fail. So where's this going? Well, it's going to fail. You cannot have $30 minimum wages, that whole list you just gave. You cannot have that and still succeed. People are going to leave. And if you put all these mandates on there, it's going to crumble New York. You're going to have buildings vacated. That's what's happening in many, many cities across the country post-COVID. You have high vacancy rates of commercial buildings, whether they be businesses or people, residential areas that have left. And when you can't pay for the mandates, that's when change is going to happen. And that's, again, the silver lining as we extrapolate out a few years from now.
we're already seeing this in the cities that have been doing this. I grew up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago and in the south side of Chicago. I went to medical school on the north side of Chicago at Northwestern University Medical School, which is right off the Magnificent Mile. Eric, if I walk down the Magnificent Mile today, it isn't so magnificent. In fact, it's decrepit. As you mentioned, the number of storefronts on the Magnificent Mile that are vacant, it takes your, if you knew the way it was and you it's breathtaking in a bad way, not a good way.
Yep.
And when you don't have businesses, private businesses operating because they cannot afford to operate there, you have a corpse.
So politics aside, that's the real tragedy here.
Yeah.
Is that our great republic was founded on these principles,
Yes, it was.
and over the passage of time, now we're going to be celebrating 250 years. Over the passage of time here, unfortunately, the public education system has not taught history. Why is individual liberty important? Why is free market systems the best? It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it is the best of all options to allow those to achieve prosperity. Why is a republic better than a democracy? These fundamental principles here have not been passed on to the next generation. And then I've seen the interviews on New York of the people. They can't articulate a reason why they're voting for the socialists other than, oh, it's a change, it's something new, he's got pizzazz, he's got personality. Well, those aren't the reasons that are going to lead to prosperity. And because we haven't passed that along to the next generation, unfortunately, we are doomed to repeat history, as the philosopher had told us, and it's coming to pass.
Eric, right in your backyard, the city of Minneapolis, there was an election as well. And the what was put forward was, as Mamdani is winning, the Democratic Socialist in New York, you are going to see this individual called Omar Fatah win the mayorship outright in Minneapolis. Well, come Wednesday morning, you are hard pressed if you're outside the state of Minnesota to find out what happened in Minneapolis. Because, hey, wait a minute, that guy was going to win outright. He'll get more than 50% of the vote. Well, Eric, the reason why we're not hearing anything about it is because even in the People's Republic of Minneapolis, let's call it, the Democratic market socialists didn't do so well. Educate our listeners.
So the equivalent, New York got most of the attention, the mayoral race out there. Minneapolis had a similar mayoral race where you had in New York, it was a radical leftist socialist competing against a radical leftist or a leftist, left leaning.
Right.
In Minneapolis, similarly, it was a left leaning against a radical socialist. Now, the radical socialist is a current state senator, Omar Fateh. I currently serve with him in the Minnesota Senate. He is part of the contingent of Ilhan Omar. They worked really hard to get him elected. The current incumbent, Jacob Frey, well, on the night of the election, Minneapolis has ranked choice voting. And so you have a candidate has to achieve 50%, not just a plurality. And so because Jacob Frey nor Omar Fateh obtained 50%, it's going to go down multiple iterations now of counting to second choice, third choice, etc., until one candidate or the other gets the 50%. Now, why didn't you hear about it? Because Jacob Frey leads Omar Fateh by 10 points, at least after the first round of voting. If both the socialists had won New York and Minneapolis, it would have been everywhere.
Right.
But because that didn't happen in Minneapolis, at least in the first round of voting, it's completely silent. It's not anywhere in the media. And we'll see where it goes with the subsequent rounds of voting in the coming days here. But the reality is, at least as of now, it doesn't appear that Minneapolis went that radical.
And then there's California, Proposition 50, which essentially redistricts the entire state. And at a minimum is going to gain 5 Democrat seats for the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. In other words, legalized gerrymandering is a district mandering. Is that an overstatement?
Well, and just for those who may not have the full background of what Proposition 50 was in California, so there are some states, I think most states, I don't have the exact count, but the vast majority of states, they apportion or they create the district maps by the legislature. The legislature does that. There are some states like California that years ago, I think it was under former Governor Schwarzenegger, they institute some kind of a citizen board or an independent board, independent commission that takes the redistricting authority away from the legislature and gives it to this supposed independent board who then draws the map. Well, that was a constitutional proposition, I think, that passed back in Schwarzenegger's time. So Newsom in present day was not permitted per the California Constitution to just rewrite the district lines. Instead, they first had to essentially reverse the California Constitution with Proposition 50. That's what happened. And so Proposition 50 takes the authority away from this independent commission, right, places it back with the legislature. Now that the authority is in their hands, they are going to write the maps and take away 5, if not more, using gerrymandering. And so,
and if
but
they
keep in mind, we also keep in mind though, this is the same count from the census that they are counting on illegal immigrants as part of their tabulation of the apportionment of representatives that they get. The whole thing is corrupt.
Yes. Willfully corrupt. Not accidental, not coincidentally, but willfully corrupt.
Exactly.
Okay, so here, as bad as these issues are, right, that we've discussed, here is one of the most concerning things to me. Maybe it's not to most people, but it is to me. In Virginia, the Attorney General's race, there's this guy named Jay Jones. And he was a member of the House of Delegates. And several years ago, he texted another member in the House of Delegates about the then Speaker of the House in Virginia. So let me just pull this headline up. Democrat Virginia AG candidate Jay Jones fantasized about a GOP pol getting, quote, 2 bullets in the head, end quote, in shocking text messages. Jay Jones, Virginia's Democratic nominee for AG, now elected as the AG, sent a series of disturbing text messages to a former colleague where he suggested the state's then House Speaker Todd Gilbert, quote, deserved to be shot in the head, end quote. Not just a one-off, he then doubled down, suggesting that he wished Todd Gilbert, the Speaker of the House's wife, could watch her children die. The guy, in spite of that, and the person running for governor would not pull her support from him. And you didn't see any national figure saying that's wrong. You know, this is so off on the D side or globalist side. But here is one of the even more concerning things. There were the people who voted in Virginia were asked the question, if his statements about murdering another member of the House and his children, if they felt that those statements were disqualifying. Only 46% of voters in Virginia felt that those statements were disqualifying. Eric, not 96, not 86, 76, 56, only 46%. Eric, that is a condemnation of our society.
100%. 100%. When it comes to the results of elections or other things, sometimes we can say, well, it was influenced by this external force or that external force, or this happened as the October surprise, or, whatever it is. We've been talking about that for decades, and it it changed this or that outcome. But there is another thing, another point that we can't overlook, and that is there may be the absence of an October surprise or external force influencing, et cetera, disproportionate. And instead, there is just the hardening and the rot of the humans in that area. And if you're saying that, so 46, you're saying roughly 54% of them found it to be okay, if I understood you correctly.
Uh, uh, yeah, 46%
Said it was wrong.
felt that his statements were disqualified. 54%
Okay.
said, oh, he had a bad day.
So that means 54% of the people were willing to rationalize, to overlook, whatever, to dismiss. And that to me speaks to the rotting condition, the moral depravity, not of that candidate. That candidate seems then potentially an accurate representation of the 54% in that area.
Mhm.
And that is a very dangerous and sad commentary because that is an infection of the heart and mind that it creates a callousness towards the value of other human beings.
So that brings us to what we call Riot, RIOT, Riot Incorporated. I want your take on this from a geopolitical analyst. So many still don't get it. The Democrat globalists intentionally left the border open, flooded the nation with tens of millions of illegals, harbor them in sanctuary cities, refuse any election security, encourage illegals to vote, and then they steal elections while rhino globalists sit back and take no action. We are under attack from within. The Democrat rhino globalists have waged war against the American people and imported tens of millions of illegal voters so they can retain power. People don't seem to understand that there is not going to be any coexistence. Either we defeat the deep state here and now, or they will gain complete control, and humanity will be destined to a life of slavery at the hands of true evil. Everyone needs to wake up.
That is spot on. Wake up, and I would just add, get your priorities aligned because the priorities of many are in and on things that do not matter in a week or a month into the future. What does matter for years into the future is opportunity and how opportunity is achieved. And that is achieved through our constitutional republic. And there are those, both domestic and foreign, that hate us,
That's right.
that hate liberty. They prefer control over liberty. They prefer mandates over individual choice. And they are seeking to undermine the great American experiment. And they're using organization and dollars, both foreign and domestic, to fund groups or entities that through a flow of money into the hands of those paid rioters. They pay for the bricks that these rioters are throwing. They pay for the salaries or the hourly wages. They pay for the buses to bus them in. They pay to print the posters that are waived. They pay for the organization, and these people that are funding and these paid for hire stooges are undermining the very system that's going to allow this great country and individuals can start with nothing, whether you're born in this country to a poor socioeconomic status or you come to this country legally and are in a low socioeconomic status. It is that opportunity that allows you to flourish. That is what they're undermining and seeking to replace it with control. It is so angering.
So the question then comes, Eric, our listeners go, look, I don't like where this is headed, or actually more than headed. I see the cliff. And frankly, I think we're, if not over the cliff, about to go over the cliff, like the old Road Runner, Wile E. Coyote cartoons. Um, what can I do as someone who cares about the future of my family and the future of my constitutional republic? What can I do? Because I'm constantly told there's nothing I can do. This is beyond anything I can be involved in or help with.
Well, throughout history, that is always the refrain, is to cause people to be demoralized, cause them to make a feeling of or have a feeling of helplessness. When, if you look at our country now, our roughly 250-year history, it is those that did step forward, those that ignored the voices of helplessness, whether it be the Revolutionary War, whether it be the Civil War, whether it be all the other struggles, the civil rights movement. There are those that chose to get involved. And so, for anybody who wants to push back on these, it requires organization. The left that opposes our values, they need to organize. They need to have people that are willing to be participants. We have to do the same thing on our side. If you are concerned about the future of our country and the future of our children, you need to get involved. You need to find the local groups that share your values. It could be a political party. It might be a non-political movement, or a non-political entity that is moving in the direction of influencing politics, like a local church, right? Churches have the values and they can organize and move the needle. You need to find an entity that you can band together with like-minded individuals, make your voice amplified, and organize. Whether it's not just a one-time thing, it's not one and done, it's organized consistently, showing up during legislative sessions, organizing to win school board elections, to win state representative or senate elections, and otherwise. We need to organize and show up. That's how we push back. Do not allow the poison of helplessness to infect the mind.
And many people believe, Eric, and I want you to address this because you're right there. Many people believe, well, me contacting my elected representative locally at the state level, senator, member of the House, or federal, or my governor, or my elected representatives in the House of Representatives in D.C. or the Senate, um, it won't make a difference me contacting them. It won't make a difference if I get a group of people to all phone these individuals and say, listen, we're wise to what's going on. Here are the issues that we find to be important that we believe are not being addressed. Why aren't you addressing them? And what are you going to do to address these? Because if you're not going to address them, we're going to find somebody to run against you, or we're going to primary you out, or we're going to recall you. Many people believe that has no impact. That will not affect the game that's being played. Your take, Eric.
That is 100% wrong. Either so those people do need to reach out. Don't send the form email. When you get the link in social media, click this. Do you uh XYZ politician believes XYZ, click this to send them a message. I receive a form email, and it'll be with four dozen other form emails. The exact same thing. It's just the name is different. Those are the least uh, uh, helpful emails or communications. You need to phone or write a genuine email or request an in-person meeting. Okay, after you've done those types of attempts to influence your elected representative, regardless of level, if they are indeed ignoring you, because there will be some that ignore, you then need to carry it to the next level and use that organization to defeat them and have them replaced. Because if they truly are ignoring the values and the priorities of the area, then they deserve to be replaced with somebody who's going to more faithfully represent the principles of this country and the values of the area.
So, Eric, let's our final topic. Let's talk about the illegal immigration-based gravy train. We've had the government shutdown. Now, tell me if I'm wrong in my understanding. This has now been shut. The government shutdown occurred because the Dems in the Senate in Washington refused to vote for the continuing resolution. That was the same continuing resolution they had voted on 4 times in the past and passed, starting with Joe Biden. So, in other words, this is a Joe Biden based, Kamala Harris based continuing resolution for funding. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And they voted now, I don't know, 15 sometimes. And now that the election's over in New Jersey and New York and Virginia and in California with the prop and in Minneapolis, around the country, my bet is they're going to end their stalemate because they look at, they're going to try to meld this into, hey, the reason why we won is because, the government was shut down. Well, wait a minute, you kooks, you're the ones who shut it down. It wasn't Trump, it was the Republicans that were all voting for it, right? But that's how they're going to try to spin it. And part of this and the what exposed, if you will, in this shutdown was the illegal gravy train. So, Eric, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, WIC, the school breakfast and lunch program, has federal funding, but it's given to the states to implement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There are many people around the country saying, well, there aren't illegals getting SNAP, WIC, school lunch breakfast program because it's illegal for illegals to get funding. But Eric, if you look at the analyses, this just came for the Center for Immigration Study. They looked at all this. The headline of their report that they put out recently: illegal immigrants to be hit hard as SNAP and WIC benefits expire. Well, wait a minute. If those folks aren't supposedly getting it because it's illegal, hey, it's illegal to rob a bank, right? But banks still get robbed. Okay, here are the numbers they come up with. Of households headed by illegal immigrants, the study shows that 59% use one or more welfare programs, cash programs, such as through Social Security, food assistance, Medicaid, or housing. Illegal immigrant households have especially high use of food programs, with 48% enrolled in one or more of these programs of SNAP, WIC, or school lunch breakfast programs. In particular, the analysis found that 17% of illegal immigrant households use SNAP. Well, Eric, one way they do this is because the money gets funneled to the states and the states administer the funding. Many states go, yeah, we know you're illegal, but we're going to give it to you anyway, right?
So it's in the departments of the governors of Newsom, Walz, and others. And absolutely, they're not going to put the necessary controls in place. Newsflash: illegals, illegal people, illegal people that commit crimes. And
Right.
so if they're already illegal, having performed illegal actions, they're going to perform more illegal actions. That shouldn't be a surprise. Recently in my social media, I stumbled across some Milton Friedman in my feed. So somehow the Milton Friedman is now getting funneled to my feed. Quotes are, video clips from the 80s. And among those, I thought this was a great, just for those who don't know, Milton Friedman, phenomenal promoter, obviously, of free markets, and are very articulate. In the recent clip I saw, he says, for many years, for hundreds of years, those that were attracted to the United States came for what reason? For the ability to have opportunity. No guarantee, but to have the opportunity. That was the attraction for people to take the risk to come here. Well, what is the reason today? Are people coming to the United States for the most part because they are attracted by the potential for opportunity to achieve? Or is it because they are attracted by a welfare program? And I'm submitting that in the current day, that there are significant numbers of people that are coming here motivated by getting on the welfare, the generous welfare programs funded by the American taxpayer. There are certainly still a lot of people that are coming here with the promise of the potential to achieve opportunity. But there are significant numbers that are coming here with the guarantee to get on these government taxpayer funded welfare programs. And that is not the correct reason to attract people to this country. And what you're going to have is a bankrupting of systems, a strain of Americans that are funding, and much fraud and illegal activity happening.
Well, and in fact, when Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, months ago set a request to states saying, send us your data on your food assistance programs, SNAP, WIC, the school lunch breakfast program, only 29 states complied, right? 21 states did not comply, and 2 of the 21 actually sued the USDA saying, we're suing you because you shouldn't be asking us for our data. So, as a state senator in Minnesota, Eric, do you know of the data in Minnesota as it relates to the percentage of illegals that get food assistance?
Unfortunately, we've had 16 years of Democrat governors, Governor Walz is going into his 8th year. So you take those 8 years, preceded by 8 years of Governor Dayton. You've had the Attorney General's office in Minnesota. That's been in Democrat hands for over 50 years.
Oh, there you go.
And so for the last 8 years, it's been Keith Ellison. And the list goes on. So no, we do not have any like numbers or data, but the anecdotal evidence is clearly there. What we do have is fraud, fraud, fraud. And in fact, just this week, from the time of recording this, yesterday, it was released the Governor Walz's office, the office of Governor of Minnesota and Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, engage in a series of failings, and the findings were they have missing receipts for expenditures. They did not follow best practices. It's just a mess. Another in a long string of fraudulent or activity that leads to fraud coming from Governor Walz. So no, we don't have the data because Governor Walz isn't going to put it out there. But we certainly know from anecdotal evidence that fraud is systematic and pervasive in Minnesota, and there are illegals that are getting hard-earned dollars from American citizens.
So, Eric, many people will say, well, the Attorney General of Minnesota should be on that. Well, no, the Attorney General's in the soup on this, right?
That's right. Should be on this, but is not going to.
Okay, so then the question is, well, then why isn't the Department of Justice, led by Pam Bondi, if this guy can't produce receipts, I mean, at a minimum, that's fraud. Why isn't the Attorney General of the United States of America saying, because this could involve federal money that's also involved in their lack of receipts? AWOL.
Many are asking that question. Yeah.
And it's not just, quote, food stamps, right? Social Security. I got some numbers to the Department of Government Efficiency that I, interact with. It's illegal for illegals to get Social Security. All right. In 2021, this is what was passed on to me. 270,000 illegals were granted Social Security. How about 2022? 590,000. How about 2023? 964,000. How about 2024? 2,095,247.
Look at that. The years of Joe Biden, right?
Exactly. And then, how about this one? This came out of the Director of Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's illegal for illegals to get Medicaid, right? Okay. They looked at 6 states. Here's what they concluded. In a preliminary review, we found these states improperly using federal tax dollars for the allegedly state-funded program and providing coverage to individuals, healthcare coverage, including some with criminal records, murder, and assault. California, on illegals for healthcare, spent $1,310,000,000. DC, 2.1 million. Illinois, 29.8 million. Washington, state of Washington, 2.4 million. Colorado, 1.5 million. Oregon, 5.4 million. And where is the Department of Justice out of DC, Pam Bondi, on this?
I can. That's the question people are asking, and I'm hoping that it's potentially they are working diligently to gather the evidence to have build rock solid case. But nevertheless, we need to see more because many people are getting frustrated, and I could imagine it's an enormous amount of work. Delegate it then to your local federal prosecutors in these other jurisdictions, so more of the effort can be picked up by spreading the work around. Many hands makes the work easier, but nevertheless, we need accountability.
Yes.
That's what American people are demanding. That is why we elected President Trump, and we need that accountability or progress or demonstration of movement in that direction.
So we're starting to get some transparency. Well, we're not getting any accountability as far as I can tell. So Elon Musk concludes the following about illegal situation. These are simply facts, just so we're clear. Illegals are voting, illegals are receiving benefits, and illegals are changing congressional maps.
That's right. And are the American people okay with that? Well, it looks like those in New Jersey, New York, Virginia, and California are okay with that.
Yeah.
But the rest of us need to hold fast to the principles of this country so that the great American experiment is perpetuates into the future and isn't undermined by those that are seeking to undermine God-given individual liberty.
And that involves being educated with what's really happening, taking that information, not sitting on the couch, but passing it on to others. Even if they might not be willing to hear it, to pass it on. It demands action.
That's right.
Because without any of that, education, passing it on, and action, holding people accountable at all levels, local, state, national, federal, it all goes away, Eric. Am I off?
That you're right. You're spot on. And in the New Testament, Scripture says something very similar to what you just articulated. There are those, or it was implored to the listener, don't be a hearer of the word only, but a doer also. You can't just sit there, and obviously it's referring to the gospel, but that principle can be applied to anything. You can't just sit on the couch and receive the information. You can't be a hearer only. You actually have to get up and be a doer. You have to get involved. That might mean you're not going to watch the football game that day. It might mean you're not going to go to whatever activity. You actually have to go to a meeting and meet with and organize with people that share your values to pull together a call center, a Saturday morning door knocking, an awareness campaign, because to move the needle requires action. Don't be a hearer only, but a doer also.
And that's why the Tea Party years ago was so effective, right? It brought people together to put information on the table so everybody knew what was going on and then come up with a plan of action, which is why the Tea Party was targeted by the syndicate and essentially snuffed out across our country. Undermined, infiltrated, undermined.
That's right. That's right. And abused by certain government agencies and entities.
That's right.
Lawfare.
Yeah.
Because those in the deep state were pushing back against those attempting to organize. But like Winston Churchill said, never, ever, 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 ever give up.
That's right.
Once you give up, you're done.
That's right. So, Eric, let's conclude with this. In let's do 2 years, the year before the next general election. Let's make it early 2028. The spring before the next general election. Spring of 2028. Where is Memdani in New York City?
Well, I guess if he pushes forward with everything that he's promising, New York is going to be hollowed out. Businesses are going to leave, wealthy are going to leave, and then you'll have a significant portion of the population that has less wealth, but yet there are mandates to fund all these things, and it's going to crumble. So where is he? Hopefully, reality sets in and is a cold bucket of water into the face of those who voted for him.
Where is Gavin Newsom in his Proposition 50 operation?
Well, that will likely be successful because California is already a train wreck. And Newsom himself is probably going to be a leading contender for the Democrat nomination for president that year.
Where are the states where folks seem to be migrating to from New York and have been, and from New Jersey and from Illinois and from Michigan, just to name a few?
Which have been predominantly Texas and Florida.
Right.
Where are they?
Where are those
Well,
states in 2028?
the people that are moving there, if they are bringing their blue values with them, those states will turn. But we in Florida in the last couple cycles here, we've seen those that are moving to Florida are not bringing their blue values with them, and Florida became deeper, deeper, deeper red, which
Mhm.
is awesome. I don't have enough background to know which direction Texas is going, but we can't lose Texas. That's for sure.
Where's MAGA in 2028?
Well, what does that stand for? What does President Trump, while he's a figurehead, what does he ultimately stand for? And what does MAGA stand for? Make America great again. How? By putting America first. That's all that it means.
Mhm.
Is in the universe of priorities, there are many ills in the world, but we cannot, we're a country of 350 or so million people. We cannot cure, we would love to cure the ills of the world, but we can't. So, given that there are a universe of ills, but we can't boil the ocean, we have to prioritize. And how are we going to prioritize? By putting America first. When America is first and is strong, it is a beacon of light and hope to those that want prosperity, and it is a deterrent against the threats to the way of life to our enemies, such as China, Russia, and others. So we need to, again, have a MAGA that is continuing to put America first, and that cannot be forgotten. We cannot have a return to the abuse that we saw and neglect under Joe Biden and the deep state.
And the rhinos.
Correct.
Because if when I do an autopsy of what occurred uh, earlier this month in November with these elections, if you look at Winston Sears' campaign, if you looked at all these campaigns in New Jersey and the like, they didn't make it local, right? As you've pointed out before on a number of broadcasts, all politics is local. It's the old Tip O'Neill philosophy, right?
Yes.
Um, they didn't keep it local. They didn't keep it about, look, I want to do what's right for your family. I want to make sure that you're prosperous. I want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure that your kids getting educated, not propagandized, but educated. You know, I want they didn't do that. Now, the only guy who was running that I could tell on the our side of the equation that did that was Curtis Sliwa. But Curtis Sliwa got 8% of the vote. And the reason is because all these people ran away from him saying, you can't win. Now, he made some mistakes too of not embracing the MAGA side of the equation, which is about local, right? It's local. But He was the only one saying, "Look, I want to keep people. I want to make people safe because right now they're not safe." He's the only one. Only one. The other people around the country, they were talking in platitudes and in generalities and in non-specific. And when and that's whether you love or hate Trump, that's what he does. He makes it about being local. And that's what you do. That in a nutshell, that's why you're successful, Eric. And in a nutshell, that's why you're the only person in politics I have on my platform. Because you not only talk about it all being local and about families and individuals and their prosperity and their safety and their security and their education and their health, but you're sincere about it. And that's what makes you unique and unfortunately too unique.
Well, I look at this as an incredible gift. I do not own this seat that I currently hold. I do not have any expectation that I deserve to be here. It is just simply a blessing and an opportunity that I've been granted for a short period of time. And in this period of time, this short window that I have, that's I don't have an agenda. I'm not springboarding to I've got a successful career in the private sector. I'm not springboarding or aspiring for higher office. I just simply want to use the influence and the office that I presently have to promote the truth. That's it. And many times the truth hurts, but the truth is what allows us to, again, perpetuate the great American experiment to the next generation.
What's the most effective way of folks to continue to follow you on a daily basis, Eric?
Well, I have X and Facebook. It's both Eric Lucero, MN are the handles. And if
MN for Minnesota.
correct, MN, yeah, correct, for Minnesota. So Eric Lucero, MN. And I also have emails that are my official Senate that anybody in the country can sign up for, where I send out weekly email updates of the activities, obviously primarily Minnesota focused, but I do touch on headlines or events that are happening nationwide. And so that is the best way to follow and or get a hold of me. Send me an email as well.
Website?
Website is www.ericlucero.com. And there is a contact on this. You can contact me through the website, but the website is the most static, right? That which is the dynamics of modern day. Websites are static, very little new content. It's the social media that's dynamic and changing.
Eric Lucero, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. I thank you folks for joining us. It's the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. Rather than watching 14 football games on Thanksgiving Day, watch 13 and put this interview on for your family members. And let's say they're hardcore democratic market socialists or whatever they want to call themselves. Play it for them too. Because you know what? I bet you 99% of your relatives that might call themselves democratic market socialists, I bet you they don't know anything about everything we spoke about today. Fact. Make your Thanksgiving holiday the holiday that keeps on giving. Because with our interview, what you're doing is you're planting food for thought that hopefully will germinate and make people think about their positions, what they're doing and what they're not doing, and maybe what they need to do, and maybe how they might need to change a little. That will be the most successful Thanksgiving you will have ever put on the table. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for joining us today.